Well, Molo Sambonani, hello, how's it? Shalom. Good evening, Mensa, and welcome to another episode of the Big Daddy Liberty Show. Goodness me, it is, of course, a pre-recorded show. You can thank ESCOM and Andre Durator for that, as the usual broadcast time was meant to be yesterday, Wednesday at 7:30. It's currently Thursday, and at the time of you watching this, at least, it is 7:30. Welcome to it. This is the Big Daddy Liberty Show. Well, I had to draw a deep breath for this. What a week it's been. And it's been fantastic and amazing to spot a certain narrative in this country begin to break apart and crumble in the hands of political elites who often have benefited from this narrative. And the narrative, of course, is a sit down and shut up narrative, or in the words of Bheki Cele, shut up. That's the narrative that we've become accustomed to, if anything, as citizens in this country, as the faith, flag, family, and freedom type citizen. It's always been the political elites and politicians telling us to sit down and shut up, even as we see our quality of life around us dissipating, even as we raise serious issues that effectively saw us vote them in to deal with using state power. And as they fail to do that, and as we question them more and more, they are feeling threatened by that. They're lashing out, and they're actually using state violence against citizens on that. And nothing is more symptomatic and symbolic of this than the events that happened out in the Cape Flats at what was meant to be a community meeting to discuss issues of crime. That video, of course, going viral in South African corporate media and online, of Ian Cameron of Action Society, a chap, of course, who is a regular here on the BDL show as a contributor. A very heated exchange between him and a one asshat of a minister, Bheki Cele. I call him asshat. You guys know that is his his nickname on the show, because he is an absolutely useless cadre. The usual cadres of the ANC who achieve sweet nothing but demand praise and worship from the public. And it's so refreshing. It is so refreshing to see people in this country stand up to this useless leech elite that we often see in the elites. But again, don't take it from me. I want to break down, in case you missed it, I want to break down exactly what happened on, I think it was Tuesday. I'll be corrected by my guest, because I do have Ian Cameron waiting in the wings to chat to me on this. But on Tuesday, I want to take you into that meeting so that you understand the genesis of that altercation, what we saw in that altercation, and what it really means for us as ordinary South Africans. And of course, let you in on what exactly Bheki Cele, the useless police minister, feels so threatened by. Why is he so threatened by Action Society, an organization who I've rightly termed on social media are the part of the doers in South Africa, going against the talkers in South Africa. The talkers, of course, being the politicians and the political elites. So, with me having set that quick stage, albeit I feel like I waffled there a bit, welcome to it. This is the Big Daddy Liberty Show. It might not be live, but I still want you to hit that like button, please. Subscribe to the channel, and of course, share the stream after it has gone live. Let me bring you into that meeting, as I said, which was meant to be a meeting on community safety, where these are the comments that effectively sparked that childish tantrum by Bheki the asshat Cele. As I noticed that I froze there momentarily, welcome back. I'm going to play a short clip. These were the actual comments, the input that was made by Ian Cameron. You tell me if he was being rude, disrespectful, or where in this exchange he called the minister a garden boy, or any racial reference as was alleged by a tantrum throwing minister.
Police don't care if something happens to them there, because they don't have the resources to help. When I go to the different gender-based violence desks at these police stations, especially in the Nyanga cluster or traditional Nyanga cluster, the majority of the detectives have more than 300 dockets on their table. 300 dockets. How do you think you can do an investigation with 300 dockets? It's impossible. And then the cherry on top, and this is my conclusion, is that many of those detectives have 300 dockets, and it's a constable detective. He just came out of the college. He doesn't even know how to spell J88. You expect him to solve the problem.
Again, that was a snippet. Sorry, guys, I can't play the full clips on here just for time's sake. But Ian makes pointed and rightly accurate criticism, which is the under-resourcing of communities in the Western Cape, in particular, the under-resourcing and the underperformance of policing and law enforcement in mostly poorer areas. And I must say it just for the sake of to play their game for a moment, the game of politicians, but mostly black areas, the very areas that they claim to be the great representative of. They're under-resourcing with the actual resources that save lives. So Ian was absolutely spot on in raising this issue. But again, don't take it from me. Let me bring Ian on. And even as I do that, let me play one quick clip because I want to show you the first bit of Bheki Cele's response, which, as Ian puts these serious issues, these facts-based, data-based issues to him, this is the waffle Bheki Cele responds with. Absolutely irrelevant waffle. He spoke actual nonsense.
Did not join human rights battles yesterday. That's why I was sent to prison. That's why I was sent to Robben Island. That's why I lived in the cold water. That's why I ate bad food, because I was fighting for human rights. That's why today we have human rights. Don't teach me about human rights. Don't tell me and tell about the safety of my people. I fought for it. I nearly died for it. I was arrested for it. I was exiled for it.
What are they clapping for? You know, it's always baffled me, as before I bring Ian on, because this is something also people were mentioning on social media. You can hear that is an absolute nonsense response. It's much ado about nothing, really. Here is a community expecting to hear what is the hard response by SAPS, what are they going to do to get crime under control, and here's a man talking about his struggle credentials. Who cares? Dude, who cares? Seriously. And now you have a haul of, I'm going to safely presume, and I'm going to have Ian correct me in a moment if I'm wrong, because I know politicians, man. I speak fluent politician. I know what they used to do at these community meetings. They sometimes bring their lackeys, their acolytes, to be a bit like those seals that I've told you, and literally clap for the nonsense that these people talk on the stage. Meanwhile, there are real issues in our communities that they're saying nothing about. But hey, don't take it from me, as I said. Let me bring Ian onto the screen. Ian, of course, is the head honcho over at Action Society. Ian, brother, very good to have you on the show. Welcome to it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cele. It's such a privilege to be speaking with you.
Oh, dude, the privilege really is mine because, again, you know, on the show, Ian, we've been saying it for a very long time. You know, this show stands for, represents, and is literally empowered by the faith, flag, family, and freedom type South African. That ordinary South African who just wants to get on with things and wants to build a South Africa where everybody feels safe, prosperous, and of course, a non-racial society, a free society. Here's a minister, Ian, who, as we saw in that initial clip, you were raising pointed, data-based, community-based issues around safety in that area. And that's the response we got. Ian, just very briefly, recap, please. What were some of the points you were raising about mostly the work you do in these areas and the issues that people in that area face?
Yeah, so Cele, firstly, I need to make it abundantly clear that we don't do a lot of work in Gugulethu itself. We've got 2, maybe 3 cases there. So I'm not here to sugarcoat or say that we do miraculous work there. We've been mandated by a few families there that have lost loved ones or that have been severely injured because of gender-based violence there. We've got more cases around the rest of the Cape Flats and in the Khayelitsha area of someone like, and the example that I used on Tuesday was the example of Nosipiwe James that was murdered in the beginning of May of 2022. Someone like Sipukazi Boy that was dismembered. She had, sorry, this is graphic, she had parts of her breast cut off, her arms, her legs. She was then put in a trolley bin, set on fire. Horrific murder. That happened in the Cape Winelands, or rather in the Boland area close to Paarl and in Mbekweni. The reason why I'm using these examples, just to say, we've been mandated by those victims' families to assist them to make sure that we get good convictions, that we actually get convictions, because South Africa has a less than 5% conviction rate when it comes to sexual offenses. I'm not even going to talk about murder now. That's just sexual offenses, okay? Our reason for attending in Gugulethu was that we saw that the minister was going to have a community engagement session. And because we represent a few people in the area, we thought it well to go and listen to what he had to say about combating violent crime there. Cele began the meeting with a political approach. And that's what caught my attention and what irritated me, because he immediately started creating the impression that himself and SAPS are the only constitutionally mandated bodies to combat crime. But he's got the arrogance to come and say that while he and SAPS are failing that exact mandate that he's boasting about. And then he's got the audacity, even the arrogance, to come in and speak in a very derogatory way to the very entities that are trying to safeguard those communities without the national government budget that he has. And something to mention, sorry, Cele, is that you remember the Khayelitsha Commission, eh? Maybe that's a whole discussion for another day. But hardly anything that was written in that report has been implemented. So do they really care about the people on the ground? No.
And again, that for me is the kicker, is I think he quickly realized in your response to him, or pardon me, in your comments to him, that that's the big difference in that meeting, in that hall. It's people who are on the ground, who are doing something about issues, who are active, who are working with community members, who are even sought out by community members to assist, as is the case by Action Society, versus those who are talkers, versus those who sit in wonderful ivory towers in, earning their fat cat political salaries. And I think he saw the tension between those two things. And especially when you were making your comments, you were getting a lot of support from people in that hall where like, this guy knows what he's talking about, versus a minister who we were told to come and see here. Let me be precise and specific. Look at his response, Ian, when he realized, because politicians are very good at reading the room, because that's what they thrive on. They live on attention. When he started realizing that people were listening to you, watch how he began to dribble and distract the meeting by resorting to race baiting, an all too familiar, unfortunately, tactic in this country, where, especially against minorities, just listen to Bheki Cele's comments in this regard as he tries to derail your comments.
Don't provoke me. Don't talk things that you have studied and you have heard, you have been told about. I've lived this life. I've lived the life of being African. I've lived the life when my mother was called a kitchen girl, when my father was called a garden boy. I've lived that life. And I'm not going to take any nonsense of somebody who regards me as a garden boy today, because you regard me as a garden boy. You come here, shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind and caliber of leaders we have in this country, but we'll get to that in a moment. There's three nested features in what he says there that I want to quickly unpack. The first is those first few comments he makes of "don't provoke me." What kind of a minister speaks like that to members of the public. There's an almost implicit threat there of saying, don't provoke me, I'll finish the sentence, with the truth, with the reality of my failure, with the reality of my inability to lead a police department with all of the national government resources I have. Don't show me up for being the incompetent fool that I really am. And effectively a threat latent in that. And then, of course, Ian, the race baiting.
Yeah, Cele, every time I watch that, I can't help but ask, how on earth did this man become the minister? And I don't want to get into personal discussions, but just again, context. He stands there blatantly lying to people. I've got no agenda. There's no reason for me to hang around in Gugulethu to tell people. We represent victims. That's it. I love my job. I'm not going to get rich from it. There's no way that's going to happen. So all my cards on the table. And again, like I said to you earlier, in Gugulethu, we don't have many cases there. I purely went because we've got a few victims. So that's it. Okay. So he stands there and he talks about his father and mother. And you know what the sad thing is? He lies about both of them. He tells people that his mother was called a kitchen girl. His mother, and it's tragic, passed away when he was 9 months old. And his father was a senior induna for SA Railways. He was never called a garden boy. He was never a garden boy. And on top of that, he referred to them as a garden boy and a kitchen girl. I don't speak to people in such a derogatory way. And I think it's atrocious that because of my skin color, he immediately assumes that I have a certain opinion of him. And hear me out. I've seen, and really I've seen limited comments of this kind, but I've seen a few comments saying that people don't agree with my politics. We don't need to agree with everyone's politics in South Africa. But what we can agree on is the fact that 67 people on average get murdered per day in South Africa. And that the South African Police Service and the governing party, specifically a national government, are failing to safeguard people in the country.
And that is the cold, hard reality. And I think that is why someone like Bheki Cele freaked out in the way in which he did. It's that realization that it probably was a cold feeling that went down his spine during that meeting, was that people here can see me for what I really and who I really am, who is a failure. You can't hide behind that ass hat of his. You can't hide behind political rhetoric, because Ian doesn't care about the politics, and becomes very difficult for politicians when they realize that we as ordinary citizens, the faith, flag, family, and freedom type South African, don't care about the politics. We care about results. Ian, as we begin to taper this conversation off, because I want to get into who exactly Action Society are as an organization, I want to show people the aftermath of that. And I'll play those two clips back to back. And that's that the altercation, when you rightly stood your ground, by the way, you rightly stood your ground in that hall. And even as you're trying to paint you as this rabid racist, you said, no, actually, I'm here to have you as a public representative account to the very people in here. And you rightly said, no. And then his goons, his mob, his squad rock up to kick you out of that event. And I'm still asking the question, on what legal basis was that actually done? Here's that little interaction, and of course, the police manhandling you out of that event.
I sat here, I listened to you. I sat here, I listened to you talking nonsense. Listen, it's your time to listen. Sit down and listen, young man. Or get out! Or get out! Get out!
I didn't do anything. He shouted at me and I didn't want to sit down. I didn't.
Okay.
Sorry, Chief. Leave me alone. I will leave. I will leave. I don't go back. Just give me my book. Yeah, my book. I don't go back. Yeah, please. Oh God. But that is uncalled for. Yeah, that is not right.
You don't come inside the people.
Shout at me to shut up.
You did the same way, no man.
No. No. Don't do that.
I'm gonna go.
My car, I want my book. And I get my book, I will...
Of course, the fat-ass police. As fat as me, unfit, out of breath in that last exchange. And again, I have no issue with police officers on the show. People know me enough to know that I support the folks who are on the ground, who don those bulletproof vests, who carry those service pistols and patrol our neighborhoods. They are good cops in this country, but it is those good cops whose reputation is spoiled by cops like this. The question I still have here, Ian, two things. Number one, what rule are they enforcing? What exactly did you do wrong in that meeting? Actually, let me not say wrong. What exactly did you do that was illegal, that demanded a mob of police officers literally manhandle you out of the venue? And here's the irony, Ian. The same community members who saw that happening were probably thinking, I've never seen this number of cops, period, in one place when we need them.
Yeah. You know what the irony is, Cele, is that two of my colleagues left just before it happened, okay? They were on their way to another police station about a case there. And they sent me a message just after I spoke saying that they had just witnessed or just arrived on a hijacking scene less than 2 kilometers from the venue. Now, imagine the 30 or 40 cops hanging around there were actually doing crime prevention activities just, within a kilometer radius from there. There was a public order Nyala, an armored vehicle parked outside the venue, okay? Cele arrived with a 6-car motorcade, all right? And afterwards, I counted the parking spaces. They marked out 18 parking spaces for the minister's parking when he arrived. 18. Okay, so up to now, I still haven't been told what I did wrong. I wasn't read right, so it wasn't an official arrest. I saw on the one video, one cop seemed to be reaching for his cuffs. I don't know if they were going to arrest me. I'm not sure. Interesting, you'll hear in the video that they keep on saying, just don't go back. Now, I don't know, are they scared of him or are they scared of another, confrontation or what? I stood at the back of the hall. All his bodyguards were also interesting. 2 or 3 of his bodyguards, I noticed, were standing very close to me just before it happened. So I don't know if they... maybe I'm just being a conspiracy theorist. I mean, these are just thoughts going through my mind afterwards. So I'm just sharing my thoughts. But, were they wanting something to happen? Did they know something was on its way after what I said to him? I'm not sure. I also don't know who gave the order for them to remove me, because Cele didn't. All he said is, get out, shut up, sit down, whatever. But I don't know who said, go and remove him. But I mean, that cop, as out of breath as he might have sounded, he is damn strong, eh? My elbows haven't touched each other like that since I was a child. It was quite magnificent. I can say
one of them donuts for me come in handy.
Yeah. Cook sisters from the Cape Flats, man. Look, I can say it tongue in cheek now. It wasn't funny at that stage, though. But I mean, he's a strong, okay. And the other ironic thing is they had TRT guys, tactical response team guys, heavily armed, storming in when this thing started. And I was like, geez, Oaks, I had no threat. There was literally no physical threat. I committed no offense whatsoever. So a very dangerous precedent, actually. Hey,
absolutely.
That's set by
which brings me to this penultimate question then of, this is an excessive use of force on a situation that didn't demand it, number one. Number two, there must be accountability here, yeah? I know you guys have responded, of course, by opening a case. What's the latest on this and where are things now?
Yes, I was in Gugulethu, like I said, told you earlier today. So I actually came from Gugulethu just now. So we spent quite a few hours at the police station there. The service was magnificent. Now, I'm not sure if it was that good because of what happened on Tuesday. I don't want to assume that, but I must commend the station personnel. They really were very professional. We went through the docket. The two charges that we laid. The one was crimen injuria or juria. I'm very confused with all the pronunciations today, but nevertheless, crimen injuria, and then also a common assault charge, and that's aimed at both Cele and the police members. Also, IPID have already contacted me telephonically. Actually, within hours, they called me and said they've received the case. And it's been referred to them, and they'll be appointing an investigator soon, and they'll keep me in the loop the whole time. So far, I must say the system seems to be working, but I assume it's probably because it is quite a high priority matter.
Yeah, and the publicity got, of course.
Of course. So I think there's a lot of pressure. And I must say one thing, and I want to highlight this, is that my heart really goes out to some of the cops that work in Khayelitsha and Gugulethu, because again today I saw what it looks like inside that station. Cele, to work in a place that doesn't even have light bulbs, the walls are cracked, it's dirty, it's filthy, man. Cables hanging out the roofs. They don't even have toilet paper. They don't have toilet seats. It's horrific. So my heart goes out to them, because there are really thousands of good cops out there. We need to keep these dictators responsible for how they are destroying livelihoods.
Absolutely. And I think as we end, that last comment is important. It's about preserving the police force and the police members who are community orientated, who want to serve people, and flushing out and removing or reducing, if anything, those who see themselves as operators on behalf of politicians, because those are two different types of cop. The one cop, absolutely, we respect on the show, because we need those individuals who enforce the law, who protect us, who protect life, liberty, and property rights. The other, the ones who see themselves as enforcers for megalomaniac, tantrum-throwing politicians, we could do less of those. Ian, as we end off the segment, and by the way, again, I commend you, brother. I think you are rightly being accoladed on social media for standing up for this and standing up for actual ordinary people who ordinarily are scared off by that kind of thing. Talk to me briefly. What is Action Society? What can people expect from you guys? And what services do you render that people can, if they need to, reach out to you and get assistance?
So there are two things, Cele. We really have a pandemic in South Africa, a real pandemic when it comes to gender-based violence. And I'm not saying this in a melodramatic way. I can back it up with figures, but I want to back it up today with a story of a little girl called Chantal Makwena. She was 5. She was murdered, raped, and then she was dumped in a pit latrine in the Eastern Cape in Rocklands, close to PE. And the Chantal Makwena story is very important to tell, because the Chantal Makwena story tells the story of thousands of other children and also female victims that are abused in the way that she was and eventually murdered. And that's what gave birth to our Action Center model within Action Society. And it gives us an opportunity to not only do case oversight, but it also gives us an opportunity to assist with decent investigation, because we have many great cops, as I said earlier, but unfortunately, many of them have more than 300 dockets on their table. So now we can assist where possible, and there's enough space within the framework of legislation for us to help. So that's the one side of it. That's the practical side on ground level. We do assist with neighborhood watches and training, etc., here and there, but it's not our main focus. Our main focus is gender-based violence. On a national level, we campaign quite a bit against the national DNA backlog. We campaigned quite a bit about the Convicted Offender Amendment Bill, which basically exposed the fact that government released more than 100,000 Schedule 8 parolees over the last 4 to 5 years without having taken DNA samples from them. So those are murderers and rapists that have been released on parole, and we've got no way to trace them with DNA now. is a very serious problem, especially in a country with such a high rate of convicted felons returning back to violent crime. Nevertheless, those are more or less the main focuses of Action Society. I think you get the point. We always call it being a voice for the voiceless, really speaking out. And we won't shy away from that in future. And we want to encourage people to please join Action Society, become a member, and help us do more.
Absolutely. That, of course, is Ian Cameron, the head honcho over at Action Society, and someone who you'll definitely see more of here on the Big Daddy Liberty Show. Ian, thank you very much for your time. Guys, we've run out of time completely, just in time for me, because load shedding is about to actually take the lights out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this illuminated what happened on that day and the importance of guys like Ian who do the hard yards, the hard work outside of party politics, and indeed not even giving a flying fudge about politics, but serving you, the ordinary South African, the faith, flag, family, and freedom type South African. And as I said, he deserves all the accolades and support he's been getting in social media and, of course, in his personal regard. Thanks for watching the show. If you like it, hit that like button. And yeah, share the stream. Let people see the show. I will see you on Sunday for Liberty and Friends. Remember, Liberty and Friends every Sunday at 8 p.m. We'll have an awesome panel to unpack what would have happened in the news week that was. Last comment. Next week, Monday, we launch a new show, a new daily show here on the BDL Show. I'll announce all of the new exciting stuff on Sundays, LNF. With that being said, thanks for watching. Super appreciate it. And remember, as I always say, at the end of every broadcast, never trust a commie. Definitely not a politician throwing a tantrum.